Hi, everybody, and welcome to Big Joe's Journal. My name is Joe Tilden, and I am the host of this program. Well, we're taping this show on the 31st of August, and the summer of 2020 has flown right by. You look back and you say, what have you done? Well, it's gone so fast, it's hard to figure out, that we even had summer. We had a very, very warm, and I thought beautiful July, and certainly the first start of August, but we know that fall is coming. Nights have cooled off a lot. We've got some beautiful days right now. But with no fairs to wrap up the summer, and none of your summer celebrations and parades and stuff going on, it just seemed to have flown right by, sort of disappeared. And we all know with fall coming up, hopefully we're going to have a very extended fall. And of course, behind that is something I personally don't care for, and that's the season of winter. But unfortunately, our economy this day here in the state of Vermont, the ski industry is going to be a very, very important part of our economic recovery. Well, both political conventions have wrapped up. The teams are ready and set to go. It's going to be one heck of a campaign. It's going to be different from anything we've ever seen before. You won't have the large crowds and the cheering and all that. And voting by mail is going to make it very, very easy for a lot of people that were afraid for one reason or another to go to the polls and vote. For those that are physically unable to go, they're going to be able to vote. And I think this is what has the current administration scared silly. With people not going to the polls, that means their goons can't intimidate voters anymore and chase them away, especially your minority people. People are going to be voting in their own home. It's going to be their business how they vote. And I think probably nationwide and worldwide, really, the majority of votes that will be counted this time around, of course, will be coming in by mail. The current administration has tried to sabotage that, with their current Postmaster General trying to make it more and more difficult for the U.S. Postal Service to get all these mail ballots in on time so they can be counted. But somehow or another, we've had challenges before, and the country will survive. The fear of the administration, of course, they know, or they're pretty certain, that they're going to go down in flames. There's not much doubt about that. If you look at all the polls right now, the Biden-Harris ticket is leading in some states by as much as double figures. And I believe this is going to hold up until November 3rd, mainly because the Republican candidate is going to be putting his foot in his mouth more times than you can calculate. And he's going to be a big help to the Democratic ticket, getting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected. And a Biden ticket, well, you've got a veteran politician. He'll be 78 years old. He's been a champion of labor. He comes from a working family in Pennsylvania. He's been a senator from Delaware for a number of years, vice president for 8 years. His son, Bo, was the attorney general of the state of Maryland. Served in the military. Unfortunately, he passed away due to cancer. He's also picked an excellent running mate, as I've been saying for a lot of weeks. I think Kamala Harris, the best part about her is she's a fighter. And I think that's what Trumpy and his puppy dog there are afraid of. She is a fighter. And she's going to bring back into the Democratic fold many who couldn't stomach Hillary 4 years ago, namely many of the African-American voters who sat out the last election. Certainly a lot of working people who voted for Trump and realized he lied to them. With Biden as the primary candidate, they're going to switch back to the Democratic ticket. 3 key states that Trump won in 2016, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, he won by less than 1%. So it's going to take a few more people coming out to vote that's going to switch that around and swing those states into the Democratic column. One of the great things that are working for Biden and Harris are some of these demonstrations going on across the country and the way Trump wants to use military force to put them down. In other words, use the U.S. military to fire on U.S. citizens, and this does not sit well. Now, Trump paints himself as a law and order candidate, and he stands on the podium and he says there are a lot of bad people out there. Well, you should take a good look in the mirror. The baddest of them all is right there. And as far as law and order, he's anything but law and order. He promotes chaos. And I think that's one of the many reasons, they talk about marching because of police brutality and all that. I think the vast majority of marches are because of the way this country has been divided. The coronavirus has had a lot to do with it. People being cooped up, and now they're getting out, and they're taking out their frustrations. In many cases, of course, it's these massive demonstrations across the country. And the followers of Mr. Trump and some of his redneck dopes just add fuel to the fire by agitating. And in a number of cases, of course, the Black Lives Matter group are also at fault. There is the right to demonstrate. You have that right guaranteed under the First Amendment. But you don't have the right to destroy somebody's property or to destroy their business or cause them physical harm. So if you want to demonstrate and you want to march, fine. I think in Burlington they've got this ongoing Black Lives Matter demonstration going on up there. But so far it's been very peaceful. Well, schools are going to be opening this coming week, and many of the demonstrators will either be going back to school or will be going home to start their school year on TV or computers or whatever. Others will be going back into the classroom, and they'll have something to do besides demonstrate, and you'll see this thing whittle right on down. So far, the only black mark on the Black Lives Matter demonstrators are when there was a counter demonstration about a week or so ago. They wouldn't let Channel 3 interview the people in the counter demonstration. And that sort of was, pushing the nickel a little bit too far. But I think the Burlington Police Department has played it very well. They're going to let them have their fun and do their marching up and down, whatever they want to do. And then when it's time to go back to school and all that sort of thing, demonstrations will be over. And I think that's going to be the situation pretty much across the country. Part of these, one of the main factors of these demonstrations were people being frustrated. That's why you have these kids going back to college, and all of a sudden, here are their buddies and their friends, and they say, well, I'm not going to wear a mask. To heck with the COVID-19 virus. They go out and they party and all the rest of it. And it has been a problem for many of our major universities across the country. The fact that the Big Ten and the Pac-12, two of the 5 major football conferences in the country, have called off their season. Well, big financial blow to a lot of these colleges. Football pays for most of your athletic program, that and basketball, which also will probably be curtailed. We're seeing Major League Baseball now being played in front of empty ballparks. Of course, you see all these cutouts all around that people have stuck in seats, and so it sort of looks like people are there. But even the play-by-play people are doing it remotely from a distance. The University of North Carolina, of course, opened early. Students came back, students partied. They have to turn around, send them home. The University of Notre Dame had the same thing. People came back there early. They're going to start around the middle of August. The students, without using their heads, saw their old buddies, their old friends, their old boyfriends and girlfriends. They go party. And you have the virus starting to pick up, starting to move ahead. So Notre Dame had to shut down again, send folks home. This week they're going to give it another try. They're going to reopen. Notre Dame, unfortunately, is in the Atlantic Coast Conference, so they are going to be playing football this year. There's the Atlantic Coast Conference, the Southeastern Conference, and I believe the Big 12. They're all going to try and play football, and we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, many of these schools from the South are located in areas where the COVID-19 is, I won't say booming, they have it somewhat under control, but not really under total control. You look at Texas, you look at Louisiana, you look at Florida, Alabama, Georgia. And you go out to where the Big 12 is, and you see this COVID-19 is picking up in momentum. Well, here in Vermont, of course, we're going to have a form of high school football. It's going to be more or less like touch football, 7-man football. Well, you know, they can even go and play co-ed football that way. There's not going to be any tackling and so forth. Nobody's going to get hurt unless they run into a fence post or goal post or something like that. So it could probably even go co-ed. And who knows, maybe it will. Before this COVID-19 took over and set the stage for how we're going to live and what we're going to do, a number of high schools in Vermont were talking about going to 8-man football, mainly because of the lack of turnout. You know, our student population is decreasing. And the turnout for football has also been decreasing. And some of that has to do with the number of head injuries that occur in football. And so a number of schools are hard-pressed to field a team. Some of them join together. For example, at one time, MSJ, the last time, well, not the last time they had football, they had one more year after that. But for a couple of years, they were merged with Poultney to keep a football program going. Up north, two of your biggest schools in the state, Burlington and South Burlington, merged their football program. So a lot of these schools, you know, where they're having trouble getting enough people to turn out, they were looking at going to 8-man football. But of course, that is on hold now. And this fall, those that want to play football, there's going to be a lot of passing. No blocking. Quarterback's going to have something like 4 seconds to get rid of the football. It's a whole new set of rules. And it will be more or less touch football. So we'll see how it goes. I was talking with as I said last week, the principal of the Essex Education Center, Bob Reardon, and he said, you know, it's either that or no football at all. So that's life these days. Those of you who watch baseball, and I watch the Red Sox, I don't know why. It's usually disappointing, although they've won their last 2 in a row, and they're now 12-22. And of course, the season is already more than half over since a 60-game season. And this week, they're going to be playing 8 games, 3 with the Atlanta Braves and 5 with Toronto. So it's make or break this week. And I would imagine the Red Sox case is break because their pitching is horrible. Their hitting is spotty. And they have a lot of trouble getting runs. And when they do get a lead, because of their pitching staff, they have trouble, sometimes have trouble holding it. Sometimes, a lot of times they have trouble holding it. Well, this week, back a few years ago, the Champlain Valley Fair up in Essex would have been in progress this week. And back in normal times, the Rutland Fair would have followed Labor Day weekend. The publication put out by the Rutland Historical Society deals with the history of the Rutland Fair, the way it used to be, and I believe the end talks about the way it is now. But I remember the Rutland Fair when I was a kid. You didn't have television in those days, so the fair was a big attraction. It always began on Labor Day and ended on the following Saturday. And one of the big thrills was that when the Essex Fair shut down on Saturday, they had the World of Mirth Midway. They'd travel by train, and they'd come down to Rutland, and it would be down at the Park Street gate where the Midway would unload. They would be using tractors and elephants as they unload their rides and their various sideshows and all that. And they always had 3 sideshows, or as they were known in those days, girly shows, which were, I think, prohibited or outlawed around 1973 or 74. And used to have 2 shows that were Caucasian ladies and one show called Gay New Orleans, which was African American. And I ushered on the grandstand. I think I started in the 7th grade, ushering on the grandstand. And Gay New Orleans, they used to have a trumpet player, and I think I mentioned this before. And around about 12 noon when the show would open, he would play How High the Moon on the trumpet. And of course, How High the Moon became a big hit for Les Ford. Les Ford and Mary Paul a few years later. But that rendition of the trumpet of How High the Moon is the one that's always stayed with me, and the best ones I've heard over the years of that particular song. But the way the fair used to go, I used to have 4 afternoons of harness racing, have auto racing on Friday, and have the hell drivers on Saturday. And at night, we had a big stage in front of the grandstand, and you used to have a big night show with a lot of vaudeville acts. There was always a high wire act, and there was always an animal act, and you had a chorus line. The Roxyettes came from the Roxy Theater in New York for a number of years, and a couple of years we had the Canadettes that came down from Toronto, Canada. You had 20 girls in a chorus line, and they were modeled on the Rockettes in New York City. And over the years, we had some fairly big names here. Usually it was hard to get them because, these big names, they want big money, and there just wasn't the big money around here. But, we had Roy Rogers, Dale Evans here one year, and their horse Trigger. And another year, we had people from Gunsmoke. Doc Adams, Miss Kitty, and Chester was here. Another year we had Festus. And I had the pleasure of meeting Festus. And if you ever watch Gunsmoke and you watch Festus, you figure he's one of the dumbest clucks that's ever come up down the road. His real name is Ken Pierce. He's a college graduate, very well-educated man. And he plays Festus, if you see Gunsmoke, and I'm a big Gunsmoke fan, he can't read and he can't talk straight, and he gets terribly confused and so forth. But I met him when he came to the fair, and he was signing autographs, and I went over and I said, "How'd you like to shake hands with Joe Tilden?" He says, "Well, if I ever meet him, I will." I said, "Well, I'm him, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Pierce." Now, we talked about, his role and how he plays it. He said it's probably the best role I ever had. And, a real nice fellow. And I think that every time I see him, I say, here's a guy that's not only got a a bachelor's, he's got a master's degree, playing the role of Festus, a guy that can't read and so forth. It shows his ability as an actor. Now, we had Carmel Quinn. I don't know if you remember Carmel Quinn. She was a big hit on the Arthur Godfrey Show, which was a big thing on CBS TV for many years. And she was a singer, very nice lady. We had Betty Johnson here. We've had the Fontaine sisters were here. The Fontaine sisters, on Governor's Night, they invited Governor Stafford, Bob Stafford, to join him in a duet. Stafford taking one part and the three Fontaine sisters the other. And we had a dancer here by the name of Peg Lake Bates. And he had a wooden leg. And of course, he was a dancer, of course. And he was on the Tonight Show. And I think it was when, I guess when Johnny Carson was the host at that time. Peg Leg Bates was on the Tonight Show. And Johnny said, "What are you going to be doing, Peg Leg?" "Oh," he says, "they got to go up to some little jerkburg up in Vermont." He says, "I think it's called Rutland." He said, "Oh, hillbillies got some kind of a fair up there called the Rutland Fair." And he said, "My agent, for whatever reason, booked me in up there for a week." Well, a lot of people watched the Tonight Show around here. When Peg Leg Bates came on as a feature act, that grandstand was full. You could probably hear the boos and the jeers all the way down to Bennington. And he was kind of taken aback, and he apologized and said, "Well," he said, "I know what I said. I've never been here before, but you got a nice community," and tried to make it up. But he still got booed and jeered. And he went through his act anyway, and at the end, instead of getting the applause that they normally get, he got booed off the stage again. We had a number of country and western singers here. Roy, and boy, I'm telling you, I have a senior moment right now, but there were a whole host of them. There was a country gal from Tennessee, and her name was Molly something or another, and she had gone on TV. It might have been the Grand Ole Opry, and she also was going to be making an appearance at the Rutland Fair, and she also put us down. Got to go up there in the sticks up north and entertain them Yankees up there. Well, she came up here, and she came out on the stage, and she got the same treatment as Peg Leg Bates. And they booed her, and she didn't apologize. She said, "Well," she said, "all you hicks have come in from the country. Y'all got your chainsaws in the back of your pickup trucks," and so forth. And she went on like that for probably a dialogue for about 20 minutes. And then she said, "Well," she says, "I'm getting paid to entertain you, so why don't you all shut up and I'll entertain you." And she went on and put on her act. But there were a number of other things that we had down there. We had numerous exhibits. Of course, Labor Day week, had big 4-H displays. One thing on Governor's Day, which was always on a Thursday, and then they switched it to Wednesday night, and then they did away with it, unfortunately. But on Thursday afternoon was Governor's Day. And here in Rutland, it was a half holiday. We all started school on the Wednesday after Labor Day. Tuesday was Children's Day at the fair. Wednesday you started school. They were only half a day. Thursday was a holiday. Friday you had another half day. And Thursday afternoons, of course, the governor would come. You'd have the National Guard band and police cruisers and everything else. You'd come down the track. And you'd have the high school band, the MSJ band. You didn't have Mill River and Otter Valley in those days. We'd have the band from Kern Hatton Home down at Westminster. Would also be up here. And there'd be a drum and bugle corps. But I think the big feature was the cattle cavalcade, when all these 4-H kids would parade their cows around the track. And, it was one of the highlights of the fair. Also on Governor's Day, we feature harness races, the free-for-all trot, the free-for-all pace. We used to have some top-notch standard-bred horses that came into the fair. Saratoga would shut down. They'd shut down the end of August, and they'd be closed for a couple of weeks and reopen again the end of September. And some of their horses would come over to the Rutland Fair to race. From Shelburne, had one of the all-time greats in harness racing, and that was his name. What the heck was that horse's name? His name was Spencer Hanover. And there was another great horse, came down from Montreal. His name was Guy H., who was a pacer. Pacers are always faster than trotters. And there's a little thing, you know, if you go to the racetrack and you want to tell the difference between a pacer and a trotter, a pacer is like a piston. It's left front leg, left rear leg, right front leg, right rear leg are doing the same thing, and they operate like a piston. And if you listen to the beat with a pacer, it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. A trotter doing just the opposite. Left front leg, right rear leg going in the same, and the same thing, the right front leg and the left rear leg. And you can listen to the beat, and the trotter beat is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And, you know, that's how you can tell the difference. But a pacer, because, you know, of the way they're going, they're faster than a trotter. So you have your trotting class, you have your pacing class. The overall association that governs harness racing is called the United States Trotting Association, but they also regulate the trotters and the pacers. And standard bred used to have the big three, the same as the thoroughbred racing has. One of them was a Hambletonian, which for years was run at Goshen, New York. The last few years, it's been run at Roosevelt Raceway out on Long Island. And I believe this year, the Hambletonian was run 2 or 3 weeks ago. But it's lost its luster that it used to have. It used to have the Hambletonian, the Ohio Fraternity, which was run in Columbus, Ohio, and the Kentucky Stakes, which were run at Lexington, Kentucky. And of course, this year, the way things are all screwed up, as you know, a couple of weeks ago, we had the Indianapolis 500, which is normally run on Memorial Day. I believe come Labor Day weekend, we're going to have the Kentucky Derby, which is normally run the first Saturday in May. It's going to be run now in September. And I'm not sure whether we're going to have a Preakness or we're going to have a Belmont Stakes. I don't think we are. So we're going to have to settle for the Kentucky Derby to determine who's the top 3-year-old in the country. A lot of changes, and it's going to take some getting used to. And are we going to go back to normal? Well, a good question is, how do you define normal, and what is it? I think we've seen a summer where we haven't had the numerous attractions that we've had in previous years, and yet we've survived. We have a truncated baseball season. I think interest is down a little bit, but people are still interested, still keeping an eye on it, although they can't go to the stadiums anymore. They can watch it on TV. And the political campaigns, look at your national conventions, the Democratic Convention, the Republican Convention. And of course, we know in the Republican Convention that both their nominee for president, their nominee for vice president, both violated the Hatch Act, which says you can't use a federal setting for political purposes. So you got the Veep using Fort McHenry, which is a national shrine in Baltimore, and you got their big bozo using the White House. Violation of the Hatch Act. Then he talks about a lot of bad people out there. Well, time rolls on. August is done, September's upon us. May Almighty God in His infinite wisdom continue to bless these United States of America. God love you. Have a great week. See you all in 2 weeks. Next week is Labor Day. So long.